Thank you for attending the poll worker training and working the polls on election day in Bucks County. We'll be going through a PowerPoint presentation covering everything you'll need to know for election day, starting with delivery of supplies. Your supplies will be delivered to you the weekend before the election. The supplies that you'll receive are a supply box, a provisional ballot bag, and a poll book bag. Your delivery driver will call to schedule a time to drop off the supplies. Verify everything is for your precinct before signing the receipt. Prior to election day, you'll also want to visit your polling place to verify the machines are for your precinct. You'll receive a letter about a week before the election with all of your machine numbers. If you have trouble accessing the polling place, please contact our office. The elected constable appoints deputy constables to serve at your precincts on election day. The only one with the ability to appoint deputy constables is the elected constable, and that must go through the courts. Constables maintain order in the polling place, clear a path for voters, and clear a path at 8 o'clock to make sure that the last person in line is able to vote. They are also permitted to help at the polls if necessary. Setting up your voting machines is one of the first things you'll want to do at the start of the day. To see instructions on how to set up the machines, please look in the pages in your election manual. Additionally, these are also available online. You'll also want to lay out all materials and hang any referenda. You'll administer the oath of office and sign your pay sheets. Make sure to fill out both of each copies in order to get paid. Be prepared to have the polls open at 7 a.m. If you have any issues getting the polls open, please call our office. Our numbers are located on the inside cover of your election manual. The contents of the cage will be 2 scanners and ballot bags, an ADA machine, 6 privacy screens, 2 tables to set your machines up, a handcart, PPE, ballots, and pens. In the bottom of the machine is an emergency backup. It's a battery that is for your ADA machine in case of loss of power. Please do not remove this. It is very heavy, and in case you ever need to use it, it's easier to slide the cage to the machine than vice versa. Additionally, inside the cage will be a red emergency ballot bag. This is also to be used in case of an emergency where the power goes out and you lose all power to your scanners. Certificate number 1 on the canvas sheet is located on the left-hand side of the sheet. To fill it out, wait for the power on report, 0 report, and polls open report to print from your ClearCast scanner. Keep all 3 tapes intact and cut them off the machine. Record the protective counter number from the polls open report onto certificate number 1 on the canvas sheets. Have all parties present sign when certificate number 1 is complete. Place in envelope C. Here's an example of a poll book page. If you see the inactive affirmation required, this voter must do an affirmation. After completing the affirmation, the voter can vote normally and sign the poll book. First-time voters are voters that are voting for the first time or in a brand new polling place. OT is a designation that means that the voter has filled out the Declaration of Assistance. It does not need to complete a new form. On the left-hand side of the poll book, these are the places where you would transfer the number from the numbered list of voters and initial where you sign the person in. If you see this designation, remit absentee ballot or vote provisionally, or remit mail-in ballot or vote provisionally, this means that the person has already applied for a mail-in or an absentee ballot, but it has not been returned. In order to be able to vote on the machine, they must either remit their ballot to you, or they would have to vote provisionally. Remember, inactive voters are allowed to vote. They just must fill out the affirmation form. We'll be going into more detail on all of these forms in the next few slides. The numbered list of voters. As voters come in, they are to be listed in the numbered list of voters. This is the number that's transferred to the poll book next to their name. During primaries only, list the party of the voter on the right-hand side. Voters voting by provisional ballot do not go on the numbered list of voters. Remember, please do not split your numbered list of voters. Affirmations of Elector. If a registered elector has moved, the voter should inform the polling place officials the address change by completing sections A and C of an Affirmation of Elector form. If the voter has moved out of Bucks County, their voting record will be canceled here and transferred to their new county in PA. Complete sections A and C of the affirmation form. If the voter has not moved, they should check sections B and C of the affirmation form. The form must then be signed by the voter and the judge of the election. First-time voters. These are the people that are either first-time voting or it's the first time voting in their new precinct. They must show ID in order to vote. Different forms of ID are accessible, and it can either be a photo ID or a non-photo ID. A list of these are here, but these are not all inclusive and others may apply. If a voter requires assistance operating the voting machine, check the poll book to make sure they don't already have an OT next to their name. This is the designation in the poll book that means that they've already filled out the declaration need for assistance. If OT does not appear in the poll book, the voter must complete the assistance form. No person shall be entitled voting assistance unless it is indicated in the poll book or they are now filling out this form. Voters shall be permitted to select a person of their choice to enter the voting machine to assist them in their voting. The judge of elections, an employer, or a union representative may not assist a voter. Be sure that anyone receiving assistance is recorded on the record of assisted voters. At the end of the night, make sure that the judge of elections signs this list. Fail-safe voters. If a voter has failed to change their address with voter registration, he or she may vote one last time at their old polling place, no matter when the voter moved, as long as their name is still in the poll book. If they are not in the poll book, call voter registration. We can see where they need to go to vote. Fail-safe voters should also complete an affirmation form so that they can be properly registered at their new polling place for the next election. Confirm the voter is in your poll book. Complete the affirmation of elector to update the voter record for the future. Record their name on the numbered list of voters and record the number in the poll book. Have the voter sign the poll book as normal and vote as normal. Name change affidavits, change of address. These are used for voters who are either changing their name, gotten married, or are moving within the same district. The voter must complete and sign and put their new signature for us to update it. Cancellation and deceased notices. Deceased notices must be signed by a family member of the deceased. Cancellations must be signed by the voter. Fleeing voters. If a voter leaves without casting their ballot, spoil the ballot and indicate fleeing voter. Put the ballot in the spoiled ballot envelope. Write the names of the fleeing voters on the cover of the poll book. If you do not know the name of the fleeing voter, simply put one fleeing voter. Remember, voters must sign the poll book before voting, except those voting by provisional ballot. Voters not in your poll books must go to their registered district to vote. Recall all voter numbers from their numbered list in the poll book. For your convenience, we've come up with suggested check-in procedures. The voter can state their name to the poll worker with the numbered list of voters in the alpha listing. Verify the voter is in the alpha listing and write their name on the numbered list of voters. Transfer their name on the numbered list of voters to a name slip. Send the voter to the table with the correct poll book. Take the name slip from the voter and verify they're in the poll book. Announce the voter's name. Have the voter sign the poll book. Write their voter number and your initials in the poll book. Give the voter their paper ballot. During a primary, make sure it's the correct party ballot. The machine inspector will give them a privacy folder and direct them to the voting area. Once finished, the machine inspector will direct the voter to the scanner. Here's an example of an absentee and mail-in listing. These are printed as close to the election as possible, but may not be completely up to date as we have to get supplies out to you the weekend before the election. If someone is on this listing and you're unsure about them, please call our office. Voters whose ballots have been marked as ballot returned have already cast their ballots and are not permitted to vote on the machine. These voters can be found in the additional section of the poll book with the watermark saying ballot cast not eligible. These voters may vote provisionally if they insist. The far right column, a date in this one indicates the ballot has been returned. These are the people that will be listed in the second section of your poll book. If there is no date indicated in the ballot return column, the voter may forfeit their mail-in or absentee ballot and the envelope to the judge of election to be spoiled. They would then vote on the machine. Spoiled ballots can be returned in the spoiled ballot envelope with your supplies. If they do not come with their ballot or envelope, they must vote provisionally. This is to ensure that their ballot was not returned in the time between the printing of the listing and election day. When remitting their mail-in ballot or absentee ballot, they'll fill out the statement upon surrendering the unvoted absentee or mail-in ballot. If the voter chooses to remit their mail-in or absentee ballot to the judge of elections, they must fill out this form. Place the signed form and the ballot, along with its envelopes, into the spoiled ballot envelope. The voter can then sign the poll book and vote conventionally. Passive electioneering. Individual voters who appear at the polling place to exercise their right to vote are permitted to wear clothing, buttons, or hats that demonstrate their support for particular candidates. However, voters who are in the polling place to vote should not campaign for those chosen candidates, and judges of elections should ask those voters to refrain from doing so while in the polling places. Under no circumstances will any poll watcher or election official be permitted to wear apparel, pins, or any other display favoring a candidate, political party, or position on a referendum. Please ask watchers to remove any political attire. The only people permitted in the polling place are you, the election officials, voters who are in the act of voting, voters waiting to vote, and watchers. Watchers must have a watcher certificate on them and be able to show it to the judge of elections upon request. The certificate remains with the watcher. One watcher for each candidate or political party is permitted in the poll at a time. They are permitted to remain after the close of polls, but outside of the enclosed space. Watchers are not permitted to wear any political material while inside of the poll, and they may keep their own list of voters. At the end of the day, you want to close down your polls at 8 p.m. However, make sure that any voters that are in line by 8 p.m. are able to vote. You're going to close down your voting machines. Again, this information is available in your Election Day manual and is also available on the Board of Elections website. Record votes on the return sheets. You'll complete the certificates of votes cast. Take down any posters and straighten up the area back to how you found it. Return the machines to their cases, put them back in the cage along with all unused ballots. Lock the cage. You'll want to return all scanner USBs, voted ballot bags, and supplies to the courthouse or the Lower Bucks Government Service Center, depending on where you return. Make sure that all equipment is returned to the cage prior to leaving election night. Canvas sheets. This is where you transfer the vote totals from your tapes to the return sheets. Once the tapes have printed, assign somebody to be a reader and at least 2 writers. The readers will call out the totals from the machine tapes, and the writers will write down the totals onto the canvas sheets. At least 3 canvas sheets must be filled out. The reader will call out the protective counter number and the public counter number. The protective counter number is the lifetime votes cast on the machine and is like your odometer on your car. The public counter number is the votes cast on election day and can be comparable to your trip meter. The reader will call out the vote totals for each candidate. The writer will transfer those totals onto the canvas sheet in ink. Repeat steps 2 through 4 for all of the ClearCast machine tapes. Add the vote totals for each candidate from the voting machines together, and have all parties present sign when certificate number 2 is complete. Here's an example of the closing of the polls, certificate number 2, that will be found on your canvas sheet. Make sure your write-in tape is printed from both ClearCast machines. The reader will call out each write-in vote. The writers will record the office, party, person, voter for, and number of votes. If the name appears multiple times but is exactly the same, only record it one time. Be sure to include the number of votes column, how many that person received. If there are not enough lines in the write-in section, you can use the back of the canvas sheet to record these votes. Place the return sheets and the machine tapes in their designated envelopes. Record the different variations of write-in votes. As you can see in this example, there are different spellings for the same candidate. Record them separately. However, if there are multiple votes for the same spelling, you can record them together. The certificates of votes cast can be completed by taking the total machine votes and adding them together. Have all election officials that are present sign below. These are the items that you'll want to keep at the top of your white supply box for when you return them at the end of the election day. First, you'll want to return your voted ballot bags. These are the bags that attach to the scanners that include all voted ballots throughout the day. If you had to use your red emergency bag, be sure to bring this as well. You'll also want to bring the orange bag that you transferred your voting machine USBs to. You'll want your poll books, envelope I, envelope C, 1 copy of your pay voucher from the morning, your spoiled ballot envelope, and your provisional ballot envelope. Provisional ballots. Remember, if these procedures are not followed, the voter's ballot may not be able to be counted. If a voter requires a provisional ballot, hand the voter the medium-sized white envelope with the affidavit on it. Have the voter fill out sections 1 and 2 of the envelope before voting. Hand the voter their provisional ballot and the small green secrecy envelope. Direct the voter to an area Have them fill out their provisional ballot. Remember, for primaries, make sure they have the correct party's ballot. Place their ballot in the green secrecy envelope and seal it. While they're completing their ballot, fill out your portion of the medium-sized white envelope. The sticker gets placed in the bottom right-hand section of the envelope. The other half of the sticker is the receipt the voter takes. Make sure that the judge of elections signs the bottom left-hand corner of their provisional ballot envelope, and that also the minority inspector signs it. When the voter has completed their ballot, have them place their secrecy envelope into this medium-sized white envelope, seal it, and then sign the affidavit as you witness. Give the voter their receipt and allow them to leave. Place their completed affidavit containing their ballot into the large white return envelope. At the end of the night, make sure that all provisional ballots are accounted for and seal the white return envelope. Record the total number of provisional ballots cast in section 1, line 2. Again, make sure that voters are given the secrecy envelope to place their ballot in prior to putting it into the medium white envelope. Also, make sure voters sign the provisional outer envelope. Different reasons that a person may have to do a provisional ballot is that they are listed as requesting an absentee or mail-in ballot, and they did not remit their ballot. Or if the voter claims to be registered in district, but their name is not in the poll book, and the BOE cannot determine their registration. If an individual appears in the district for the first time, but cannot show ID. If the judge of elections challenges their ID. Or if the election official asserts the individual is not eligible in their district. In the primary, this could be if an individual claims to be registered a particular political party, but the poll book indicates that they're a different one. Also, if they're voting as a result of a court order or voting as a result of an order extending polling place hours. The following areas drop off returns at the Government Service Center, which is located at 7321 New Falls Road in Levittown. All other polling places drop off their returns at the Bucks County Courthouse in Doylestown, located at 55 East Court Street. Thank you for all that you do on Election Day. I wish you the best of success. If you have any issues leading up to then or on Election Day, please do not hesitate to call our office. Thank you.